welcome back to ELI 82.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first asynchronous meeting. Hope everybody in ELI 82 is doing well. So today we're going to go over some vocabulary. We're starting with chapter 3 for a couple of reasons, but mainly because I think that vocabulary is an essential part of language learning and that we need to make sure that we have this core skills in that first so that we can start on the rest of it. This is the logo that I made for our class. It's going to be on the website. It's on the La Lima. It's also the tagline for our Flipgrid. So if you're on a Flipgrid or a website that doesn't have this, then you know it's not ours. Just to make sure everything's secure, just wanted to let you know that that's there. I made that just for this. So again, my name is Adam Bramlett, and here we go. So over this vocabulary chapter, we're going to be spreading it over 6 lessons. First, we're going to start with how to improve vocabulary, and then we're going to talk about how to develop a system for learning. In the next 2 sessions, we'll go further in detail with using context clues, using word parts to expand your knowledge, and then using word mapping techniques. As well as technical vocabulary. Although today we are going to go a little bit into suffixes and prefixes, we're not going to go really far into it. I'm just going to give you a resource or two. So for the next 5 minutes, I want you to kind of just put me on pause and just look up a few different vocabulary learning and studying resources online for language learning and vocabulary learning and dictionaries and things like that. So go ahead and do that. All right. Well, if you did it, you probably found that there are a lot. And if you didn't, then, well, there are a lot. So you're going to have to go ahead and delete that. If you have any that you think are particularly useful, please share them with the class. Email them to me. I'll add them to our course website under student resources. It's the last section on our website. I'm going to also go to our website today a little bit, just to show you where that is. So the basics. It's pretty simple. Use new words that you've learned, use thesauruses, and make sure you have some good dictionaries, not just one, but a few. They're all going to have different purposes. So how do you use words? Well, it's really hard. Sometimes you learn new words, especially in the stuff that you guys are doing with all of the classes that you're taking. Where are you going to learn some new word that you learned in a computer science class, or a religion class, or an art class? Where are you going to use some of those words? It can be difficult, but have conversations with your classmates. Look up conversation threads online. Try to use them. Also, flashcards are really useful, and we're going to go into flashcards quite a bit today. I'm going to show you a website for them. And for thesauruses would be a lot more useful because this is a reading class. It's not going to be particularly useful, although it is useful to find words that have similar meaning and kind of throw them together. If you look in the book, I think the word that they talk about for thesauruses is to talk about, quote, right? So they say, instead of saying talk about, you could say something like discuss. You look up talk about, you find discuss, deliberate, debate, a whole bunch of these things. Debate also has a secondary meaning, which kind of means a little bit more of a competition type thing as well. But it can also have the secondary meaning of having a conversation or discussing a point. And lastly, good dictionaries. So there are a lot of different kinds of dictionaries. I'll actually go into a few right now. We're going to start it off there. In the book, one of the first things that it talks about is let me find it real quick. It talks about different types of dictionaries. I don't know if you guys got to go through it or not, but if you didn't, no worries, because I'm going to show it to you. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry, it was on the first page that I was on. Okay, so One of the first types that you can find is a pocket dictionary, and that's not going to be very useful for most of you at this stage because it's going to have more simple words, very direct translations to things um, that aren't very usable, I would say, in a pinch it's useful. If you don't know the word for bathroom and you're traveling, then that's great. But as far as for academic reading, it's not going to be as useful because it's not going to have words for special vocabulary. Although if it's what you have on you, then that's also useful. But today, with all of the with having phones on you and things, there are all sorts of online dictionaries that can do a lot better. A desk dictionary is kind of a broad. Generally, it has a very complete catalog of vocabulary, although none of it's specialized, and it very rarely has complete definitions to the extent that there aren't a lot of resources outside of it. A better version of that would be an unabridged dictionary, which has a much more complete definition, multiple uses, pronunciations, and some dictionaries will have that as well, but unabridged dictionaries always will. And that can be really useful, especially if you can already read in the International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA. If you can't, then that's okay. It's not a common thing to be able to. But it is useful for learning how to pronounce a new word. If any of you are ever interested in learning, I have a lot of resources on that. So next there'd be online dictionaries, which over the last couple of years, starting 2010-ish, there have become a large amount of online dictionaries that are extremely useful. There are different types that can go to specialty type things that you can see, like below that there's the subject area dictionaries that we have here. And you can have a lot of specialized vocabulary as well as different functions like listing functions, direct import to your flashcard system that you'll be using. Something like we're going to be using Enki in this course if I haven't mentioned that already. But yes, online dictionaries, I would recommend using them. I have a couple resources under the vocabulary section on the website. I would definitely take a look at them. Some of them have different uses. You can catalog them so that you can go back and study them so you don't forget words. So you'll have them in the future. I would definitely make it a point to go through some online dictionary sites. I don't have one that you have to use, not like our flashcards using Enki. There are a lot of really good ones. I did do, I think it's called Readling or Readlang on our website. That's one that I've had a previous student tell me was pretty good and they use. So if you like that, or if you find one that you think is better, or even a subject one that you think is better, please email it to me. I'll put it up on the class, say what it's for. Yeah, it'll be really good. So as far as the subject area dictionaries, these can be really useful, especially if you're in computer science or engineering or whatever specific major you're in, even if you're in, art or history or these things as well, and not just STEM type things, not science, math type stuff only. It can be everything. There's specific what we call jargon, and each of these jargon is just specialized vocabulary. That's going to be in all of these. So you're going to want to have a good command of these in any area. And any time that you're going to go into a new area, it's very common to find, even if your language proficiency is really high, that you're going to have to learn new vocabulary. Even as a native speaker of English, I have to do it all of the time. I learn new words constantly. And I myself keep vocabulary lists, not just of English, but also of English, especially if I'm learning new things. For instance, if I'm learning things like, there was a summer a couple years ago where I wanted to learn brain anatomy. So I spent several months just writing down the vocabulary for different terms of like the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, different things like this, so that I could learn this vocabulary, because it was very foreign to me, almost like a foreign language. So there's no shame in this. It's a long-term game with language learning, and you can do it in your first language as well. But for us, we're going to be doing it in English. But definitely remember that using these dictionaries is something that we can use for a long time in the life of our language learning process. The last thing I would like to say about dictionaries is to kind of remember what dictionaries are. They are a useful resource for understanding what a word means, but I think it's also important to remember I know a few dictionary editors, and they're not deciding what a word means. When they put a word in the dictionary, they are trying to describe how it's used in normal society. And in some cases, they're forcing a definition on it. With more politicalized terms, that often happens. But most of the time, what they're attempting to do is to describe the way it's used by most people. So up-to-date dictionaries are useful in that they are doing to the best they can, predicting what will be in the language and what will stay and what will fall out. They won't put in a new word if they think it'll just fall out of the dictionary. A good example of something like this is YOLO. I think it was very commonly used a few years ago, or maybe just a year ago, whereas now I hear it much less often. I don't know if that's here to stay or not. I know a few unabridged dictionaries that have added it to their list and put it in, but I'm not sure if that's here to stay or not. But it is a useful thing to remember that just because the dictionary says something, that doesn't mean that that's the only ways that it can be used. Sometimes you'll find new ways that people are using it, and eventually you can start creating those new ways of using something when you have a very good command. Of course, you can't do that if you don't already have a very good vocabulary and a really good understanding of the words, but it's something to strive for in any language learning journey. If you guys have any questions about dictionary types, be sure to email me. I can always add some sections to this if you want to know more about specific dictionaries. But if not, I am going to move on to the basics of prefixes and suffixes. I think that prefixes and suffixes are extraordinarily interesting. They fall into a kind of Lego-like territory. I don't know if you guys know what Legos are, but the little things that you stack and you play as a child, and for some like me, adults, and you build things out of them. But so for prefixes, what we're looking at is there's a lot of them that have specific meanings. I would like to say that not all of these have a consistent meaning all of the time. There are counter examples to things that aren't always this way. But if you know a lot of them, you can get by through a lot of vocabulary that seems complex, but is actually pretty simple. If any of you have taken Latin or Greek before, you'll find this section very easy because a lot of these words come from Latin or Greek, or these prefixes and suffixes, that is. So when we're going through this, I kind of want you to imagine it as a type of kind of Lego game that we're playing. So if you can learn these, then you can kind of figure out your way around the words. You can take one apart and you can figure out like, oh, this isn't complicated. It's just it's just this meaning, and this part's just this meaning. What does this middle part mean? And you can get a little closer. I myself have to do it on a regular basis. So what are some examples? An example of this is like a at the beginning of a word as a prefix. It can mean not or lacks, like apathy. It means to not care about something, similar to like sympathy, right? But apathy, right? But you pronounce it apathy. I was just saying it that way for emphasis. Poly means many. That's a good example of one. It's used in a lot of different words, like we have another example on the next page, but pseudo is a good example. Pseudo means fake. You might find like pseudocactus, a fake cactus. Pseudo is a common word that's used in biology. A lot of plants have pseudo something on it. You can also say that somebody is something like, you can say pseudo-intellectual, which means a fake intellectual. But pseudo is spelled P-S-U-E-D. Oh, yes. So some more examples of this Lego-like behavior. Let's look at it. A good example of poly would be polytechnic, actually. All right. So, right. So we have here, like on the last page, a, not, or lacks. Poly, many. Mono, one. The, God. I'm not saying that the word the comes from God here, but when it's in a word, it means God often, not always. Ist is a member of believers or a follower. So basically somebody that is a part of a group. Ism, the belief in. So, or the belief of, I apologize. I'll fix that when I upload this. It's actually the belief of. You attach this one to different things to make it a religion itself. And then istic, meaning relating to an action or practice. So, for instance, if we add some of these together, we can figure these out. So, we have God, ism. So, we have the belief in God, right? So, somebody that, this is the belief in God here. Theistic. So, we have God relating to an action or practice. So, something that's relating to a belief in God, right? Or polytheistic, something relating to the belief in many gods. Atheist, somebody that does not or lacks the belief in God, right? Or atheistic, which means basically relating to an action or practice that is not believing in God, right? So monotheistic, meaning the same, so one God, the belief in. And then monotheist, a person that doesn't, and polytheism, a person that believes in many gods. Right. So you can kind of see this type of Lego mentality here. And I use this as an example because this is just some of the ones you could have. Actually, there are a lot more. You could have polytheistic, monotheist, polytheist. I don't have any of those up here. Or no, yeah, no, I don't. Polytheist, I don't have that up here either. But you can use these in a variety of ways. I wouldn't recommend trying to create one per se, but if you understand them and you run into a word that looks like this, monotheistic, it can be very helpful because it seems a little daunting at first, but if you know the parts, you can break it down a little bit better, or at least some of the parts. If you know the mono and the istic, then you can kind of get a little bit closer to this. You know, it's a belief in a single something relating to an action or practice. It can be really helpful. So I'll do the next slide. So here I'm going to go over a couple resources. I think language learning is a different process for everybody. For myself personally, I find having information to be key to learning language and to getting better at things like reading. When I know more about words and what they're doing and how they're acting and how most people are using them, I have a better picture of how I can do it. Which gives me a little bit more complete view of what the words are. So I'm going to start off here with Google Ngram. This is an interesting site. What this does is it uses a whole bunch of books that are basically uploaded to Google, and they use a basically a visual technology. I forgot what it's called at the moment, and I lost the word, but it a technology that's able to look at the text and then able to turn it into readable text. What's that called? Anyways, so then they count the words. They see how they're which words are close together in one sentence, and then they're able to develop use trends over time. So for these words on the screen right now, we have Frankenstein, Sherlock Holmes, and Albert Einstein. And we can see that, and a lot of these make sense, right? So Sherlock Holmes has become increasingly popular over the last 20 years. So it makes sense that the use of the word goes up, right? And we have Albert Einstein here, and it sounds like almost nobody talked about him until 1920. It's insane. Which makes sense again because of the historical time period, right? So why would somebody be talking about him in 1853 when he didn't exist? So you can see maybe how this could be useful already. Frankenstein, similarly, it's been pretty popular over time, but there was a spike back here in 1800, or between 1800 and 1820, maybe 1816. And I would bet that that is when it was written. Not positive, but you can look it up. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it was long before that. or there was some surge that led to people talking about it a lot more. Okay, so how are we going to use this? So I know this is a little confusing. It's graphs, it's numbers. We're in a language class. What are we doing? Right, I understand. So what we're doing is we're trying to see how something is used. And what I want you guys to focus on is not the trends over time, but instead I want you to focus a little bit more on how it is right here. So we can compare two words. A good example of this would be something like dog and canine, which both mean dog, by the way. Canine is the scientific name for a dog. So you guys might already know which one of these is more common. Well, you can go ahead and make your bets now. You probably got it right. Dog is a lot more common than canine. You can see that here, I don't know why this uptrend happened, but if you just look at the difference between canine here and dog here, canine has been pretty consistently used, whereas dog is very high usage, and it's much higher. So we're talking about factors of greater usage, right? This is a lot more usage. What's another one? We could do something that relates to this class, vocabulary, and a more technical term, we can say lexicon. Lexicon is just another word for vocabulary. It's what we use in linguistics to describe the words that a person knows. It's the total group, whereas vocabulary kind of focuses a little bit more on individual words, but basically the same thing. So if we look at these two again, we're going to see a similar trend, a scientific term versus a more colloquial term, vocabulary. And if you looked up a lot of different words, you'd find similar things. Possibly another one that could be interesting is if we looked up something like global warming, because we're talking about climate stuff for this class. Oops, global warming, climate change. And so global warming and climate change, these two words, they were kind of in competition for a good 20 years. People were using them back and forth. Some people preferred global warming, some people preferred climate change. But if we look at both of these, then we might be able to see which one is more used now. Right, okay, so climate change is a lot more used, which is expected. That is the more accepted vernacular, or it's the more accepted word for climate-related change that's going on. So global warming, I'm not saying these are referring to the exact same thing. Some people would debate probably that they aren't. But you can see that there was a bit of a competition between the two words in the late 80s. But climate change took off, and global warming has kind of plateaued off, and it's in the same place. So if you want to talk about this phenomenon, it's probably better that you use climate change. And I'm not saying you should do this for just any two words, but if you know two words are referring to the same thing, or you see them interchanging, and you want to find out, well, which one should I use? Which one's more common? Which one do I use in which context? Climate change is a good example of one where it's a lot more common. It is the word that you would use scientifically. Of course, canine and dog kind of show the opposite trend, where the scientific term is very low. But that's why I'm saying with this, you want to take it and kind of see what's going on. All this tells you is a snapshot of information. But I find that tools like this can be very helpful if used correctly. So don't take it as this word is a better word, but just that it's used more often, or at least in the on the documents that Google is looking through and the books that Google is looking through. I think you could find a lot of interesting things on here. If you guys look up any and you find fun ones that you think are worth sharing, definitely share them with the class. There's some, I'd love to hear about it. If so, you can also just put it on a Flipgrid if you like. I'd love to hear about any ones that you find that are interesting, because this does change so often, and it's not something that that we're always in tune with. But definitely take a look, see if it's useful for you, and if it's not, that's okay, skip it. But if it is useful for you, like it is for me, then share with us what's going on. We do suffixes and prefixes first. So this is just a resource that I put. This is on the website and it's on the slide, so you're welcome to use either link. So as you can see, there's the prefix itself. So anti-establishmentarianism or something like that. You can say anti-anything. So anti-gun laws, anti-whatever. This happens, it's in a lot of words, and you probably have noticed it and seen it and you know what it means. Antifreeze, that's a good one. So it's a liquid that you put in your car so that you're, actually, I don't know what it does in the car, but it makes sure that something doesn't freeze. I'm not a mechanic. But there's some of these that I think a lot of even native speakers wouldn't know. If you ask them if D meant opposite, they wouldn't know that. But that doesn't, they would know what defrost means most likely, but they might not know what the D as a prefix means. And this can really be helpful. Like if you don't know what a word means and you know the prefixes or you know the suffixes, it can be pretty great. And this is a case where there's two that have the same meaning. This is also not uncommon in languages. You can see that these are very similar, even pronunciation-wise, they're similar. Similar here, N and M being confused here again. And this is one of the places that I want to point out here, that we have two words that mean two different things, right? If you have in, like infield, then it's going to mean inside of something, like infield, this is used in baseball. But in here can mean not. So injustice, impossible, right? So we're going to get a few of these that are going to be confusing, but if you know the general layout, for instance, thinking that this meant inside of something, like in this definition for injustice, not very sure what that would mean, or impossible. So you can kind of figure out your way around the words. And then you can also use words that you already know, like injustice or impossible, and you think like, okay, so if it's not possible, right, impossible. And you can kind of get there a little bit. Mid, some of these are very intuitive, like mid. But anyways, yeah, take a look at these. The first page is going to be prefixes, and the second page is going to be suffixes. I looked at these. One of the ones that I didn't know personally was I didn't know that the D and defrost meant opposite. But there are most of the other ones were all pretty known. And I would say most speakers would know them. This is the one showing up from earlier again, the istic, having characteristics of. Or one who does, right? So a worker, a dancer, an actor. Action, processes, enjoyment, right? Yeah, anyways, so this could be really useful. There's a lot more out here. And if you guys wanted to add these as parts of your words that we're going to talk about in Anki, if you wanted to add these as your weekly words, I think that's completely acceptable because these are really useful. If you want to know these so that you can figure out words faster that you don't know because you're going to be running into a lot of words, then this is completely acceptable as some of your, you can use these for 10 of your words or whatever you'd like to use. The ones that you don't know, try not to put the ones that you do know already, obviously, that wouldn't be very helpful. But, if you're going to do a flashcard, then a good example of a way to do that would be, put this on one side, and then on the other side, put the definition, having characteristics of, and then look up several words that are going to have that in it so you can think of examples and then go over them several times until you know them. So yeah, I think that's pretty good on prefixes and suffixes. If you guys have any questions about that, be sure to send me an email. You're also welcome to send me more links to other ones that you find that you think are useful. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close these out. And now we're gonna move on to Anki, which is kind of the big topic for today. So flashcards are a big topic because flashcards are something that are used by people all the way from elementary school through medical school, through their PhD and on. I use flashcards recreationally for anything that I want to learn a lot of information about, because it's really hard to beat the method of going over something multiple times. We forget quite easily. Um, and if we don't remind ourselves of information, then it can kind of just fall out. And what's the point of learning it the first time if we forget it, right? So I'd like you to think of flashcards as kind of a tool to keep you from forgetting. Um, so if you're going to put all this work in the first time to listen to me, to read these texts, to go through all of these Flipgrids things that we're doing, um, and to participate in these assignments, you might as well get as much as you can out of it and not lose anything. And to do that, flashcards are a really good way to do it. Of course, we're going to do multiple readings, and if you forget a word, don't stress about it. Don't hold yourself to too high of a standard, but flashcards are a good way to keep track of a lot of information and to make sure you don't forget it. And you can always modify them. That's the great thing about them. So the flashcard app that we're going to use, there are a lot out there. The reason I chose Anki for this class is because of the customizability of the app. The app really allows you to take advantage of its open structure. So you can add words from any subject. I've used Anki for a ton of different things, all the way from learning bird songs to different birds to learning parts of the brain and learning definitions for tests that I had in undergraduate and graduate school. So anything that you guys want to learn, I wanted to introduce you to this because it's not just a social learning app. And Quizlet is a great app for groups of learners. I don't want to talk bad about that. It is great. But because of the nature of this class, you guys all being in an advanced reading class, I think that the best option is really for each of us to have our own personalized vocabulary list that's going to allow you to study what you need to study. Because what you need, what one of the students in this class needs is not the same as what another one needs. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses, and the vocabulary that you each know are going to be different. And another thing that I would say that's great about Anki is that it doesn't limit itself in format. So if you want to put a picture on the back of the flashcard, you can. If you want to put a sound, you can do that. You can even make it to where it shows you both sides of the flashcard and the other. And that gets to kind of my last point about Anki, which is it uses spaced repetition. And spaced repetition is nice because a lot of flashcard apps, Quizlet used to have spaced repetition. I don't think it does anymore as an option, but it used to. If it does, I think it's a different kind of a rudimentary version of it and less able to change. But what Anki does is it allows you to have 10 words and study those today. And if you get them right, then you see them again tomorrow. But then you don't see them the next day. You'll see them 3 days after that. And then that after 3 days, if you get it right again, then 9 days. But anytime you forget it, it starts over. And this type of method, what it allows you to do is kind of the words and the concepts that are the hardest for you to remember, it makes sure that you're studying those the most, and the ones that you're learning the fastest, you study them the least. And this saves you time. That's the main game here that we're trying to beat. We don't want to waste time because we all have only limited time to study the things that we want to study. So when you do this, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and hit the Anki app. It's also on the website that I talked about before, the class website, and download the version that's best for you. There's also an app that is on Android phones. It's free on Android. It is not free on iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, you're welcome to pay for it. That's up to you. But you might want to try it first. You should do it on you can do it on your computer. It's also not free on an iPad. So just make sure that if you have a Windows or a Mac, it's free. But on an iPhone or iPad, it's not. All Android devices, it is free. For me, that would be the Mac version of it. And I'll go ahead and download that just to show you. I'm not sure if it'll run differently for you because I've already installed it before, but it should be the same. There is a new app coming out. It's called RemNote. If anybody's interested in that, knows more information about it, I would love to hear about that. I've heard that it's not very user friendly, but I heard that it has a lot of the benefits that Anki has, and and a somewhat better platform, but I'm not sure. I haven't tried it yet. I will replace. I have not tried it yet, but I would love to find out what you guys think of that if you have. Anki can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but I think you'll enjoy it over time. Another thing that you can do is share your decks. So if you create a deck, or if you're taking a class with a friend and they are using Anki too, you can create the first deck for the first test, and then they create the deck for the second test. It can save a lot of time. Saving decks can be great. A lot of times after a class, I've turned in my Anki decks to the teacher so that future students can use them. And you can use them, you can upload Anki decks to Quizlet or anything like that. You can also upload Quizlet decks into Anki as well. And the last thing about it is on the syllabus, I'm sure you've already seen, but one of the reasons I chose Anki is because it has detailed statistics about, it gives you detailed feedback about what you've been doing and what's been going on in your learning process. It's going to show you the younger words. It's going to show you what days you're studying. And I want you guys to go ahead and send me the stats. I think it's on the first of every month. It's on the syllabus. I believe it's like around the first of each month. You'll just send me your stats. That way I can see that you've been studying. And the main goal is like, with flashcards, you know, you can get behind, because if you add 10 in a week and you don't study for 3 days, you can get behind, it can add up. And with this, it resets every single day. So if you don't add words periodically, then you'll run out of, you know, if you study too many in one day, you'll run out of words. But also it can get overwhelming because you can have 50 in a day. So I'd really recommend studying no less than 4 days a week. The requirement for the class, I think, is like 3.5 per week. So 4 one week, 3 the next, that's fine. But I want you to have 50% of your days to be studied vocabulary. And if you're only doing 10 per week, then that should only be 5 minutes. It shouldn't even be 5 minutes, actually. You shouldn't be spending more than 20 seconds on each one. So if you have 10 a week, then that's 2 minutes per day. You can do that on your way to class. You can do that on your way to get groceries. Anytime you're doing it, you can do that while you're doing anything. It doesn't even matter. You can do it when you first wake up and you're having your coffee or tea or scone or whatever. Just make sure that you're trying to do it at least 4 times a week. I would recommend doing it every day. I find it to be a helpful habit to do every single day. If you just schedule a time that you're doing something else anyways, you're waiting for your water to heat up or whatever your morning schedule is, you do it then, you get it out of the way, and you know for the day that you've done your Anki stuff. And plus in the long term, it looks really great when you have some of the stats. Actually, while this is loading, I'll go ahead and show you some stats that you can use on here. That'd be helpful, I think. Okay, Anki stats. So there's good websites like this to learn how to read it. But you can see that the person that's studying here, what this is doing is it's showing matured cards over time. And what it's going to be doing is, you can see that this person is studying multiple days. This is a missed day of studying, but average cards per day is 9.4, total of 283 cards over this time period. And this is a very good chart. Also, it'll show you different percentages as well. Things like your the total cards that you have, and because you're going to be doing 10 per week, so at week 16, I expect there to be at least 160. But you know, I would recommend doing is you know, more if you can. If you can't, then 160 is definitely fine. You're not going to be counted off or anything, but it is plenty good. And then you're going to have some that are in the young learned category, and that's basically that you've just started learning it. Once it gets over a month, then it becomes matured. And then this person has a lot of unseen. So what they've done is they put cards in ahead of time, and then they tell Anki how many cards per day they want. And so you're going to go ahead and, so they have a lot that they have done. So if in week 1 you want to go ahead and put in 160 vocabulary, go for it. That way, you know, you can tell it to give you 1 new card per day. that's actually not enough. You need to do at least 2 cards per day, or 1.5 cards per day. That would be 11 a week. But 2 a day if necessary, or if you want to, and that'd be 14. Multiply that by 16, and you got you're going well. And if you do it ahead of time, if you do 14, and then by the time you get to week 11, you're already at goal, then you're good. I want you to keep studying those, but you don't need to add anymore. So if you kind of front load it a little bit in the class, then it will make it a little easier. You can add as many as you want up front, which can be very helpful. You can get a shared deck, and shared decks can be really useful. There's a lot of things for different subjects, whole bunch of languages you can learn. English is there, so if there's a particular area of study like we were talking about earlier, in your case, that would be great. There's some really good ones. There's some specific ones like here for learning the GRE if you're a Mandarin speaker, it looks like. Some ones from French, so if you are, phrases of English for Portuguese. It looks like this is for Portuguese, I'm guessing. I don't know, I can't read this language. But the point is that they're from all sorts of different languages. Looks like this one might be Arabic, and you might find some of them useful. Not all of them, but you can see how many they are. And there's also ratings on the side here. So 2,070 people downloaded this one. It has 4,000 essential English words. And you can modify. Okay, so when we're here, what we want to do with the Anki screen is once it pops up, right, after downloading and all that, and this will look different on a phone, but it'll be very similar. You want to add a deck. You want decks, and then create deck, and you're going to call this one whatever you like, but I'm going to call mine ELI 82. If you're doing them for particular vocabulary or types of vocabulary, like the prefixes or something like that, you might want to call it that. You can have multiple decks with different rules and all of that. You can see that I have a lot. So, right, so we're going to go into ELI 82. And then we are going to start adding vocabulary. So I'll start with something simple. We talked about lexicon earlier, so I'll add that in there. Linguistic term for vocabulary. And then give an example sentence. And you can look these up on a dictionary, either one that you have at home or one that you're using from online. But something like a study of lexicon is crucial to understanding the processes involved in language learning, right? And we'll have something like Zoom. Use software popular. You don't have to put IE or an example or anything. You can customize your cards however you like. Personally, I do mine in a variety of different ways depending on what I need. But Zoom. Well, we'll forget that one. Yeah, so we add that. We'll do ribbit, type of small racing dog, small version. Okay, So we have 3 vocabulary that we've now added, and I've done basic style here. You can do all sorts of different styles. Basic is the one that it comes with. I would recommend basic. But if you like a different learning style for some reason, you're welcome to use a variety of ones. If you download other decks from online, you'll have automatic, you're able to automatically put them in. And as you can see, you can also add audio files or other types of attachments if you like. And you can do all sorts of colorful things if you like. For different purposes, you're going to want to use different features. For vocabulary learning, this could be useful. If you're having a hard time with listening comprehension, then I would recommend doing a lot more auditory input stuff, putting it in there and then trying to put definitions. You can do them in the auditory version or written. But you know, you diagnose your problem, or not problem, but you diagnose what's going on, and you build a deck to solve those problems and to strengthen areas that might be weaker, or just strengthen areas that are already strong to get even better. All right. So we have that, and now we have 3 new words on our ELI 82 vocab list, and you can have as many as you want, but you need at least 10 every week. And then it doesn't need to be called ELI 82, it can be called whatever is good for you. And I'm also not requiring that the vocab that you go over is from our course, so it can be from any course that you like. If you're doing one course in this semester that you think has a lot of vocabulary and you think that this could be really useful, do it in that, but it does have to be new vocabulary. That's the only requirement there. All right, so we'll study now, and then I can show you how this works a little bit, but you'll see the front of the word, and then the back shows up like you typed in earlier, say the linguistic term for vocabulary. Look, I have a typo here, not a big deal. I'm the only one seeing this, it's okay. If you want to edit it, you can edit it right here, and you can say, oh, okay, this should be a lowercase h. No big deal. We go back, it's fixed, we're good to go. When we're looking at these terms, or these buttons here, what we should notice is that when it says 1M or 10M or 4D, what this means is less than 1 minute, less than 10 minutes, 4 days. Later you'll get 1 week, so 1W, and then you'll get 1M, or you'll get 1 month, I think is what it says. It might say M, I'm not sure if it's, but it might say 1MO, and then 1Y. Once you get to year, if you are continuing to use Anki after this, which I hope you'll fall in love with it the way that I have, because I found it to be a really useful tool in a lot of different areas. But what you're going to want to do is, for this one, I'll say, actually, when I click this one, this is like, oh man, I really don't know it. The middle one, I like to think of it as like, I kind of got it, but not really. But mostly good, right? Like, I could be okay. This one over here, I like to think of as like a very seldom thing. Like, you know it so well that you're like, all right, 4 days is good. If all of your words are ending up in this easy category, then you're not adding difficult enough words. Not saying that that's bad, but try adding a little bit more difficult stuff, phrases, things like that. So I'll say 1 minute. I didn't do very good at that. Zoom, I know that pretty well. Wibbit, I'll say, I don't know what that is. I'll do it again. It's a type of small racing dog. Okay. Lexicon. I'll say it's good this time. And I'm just going to click through these so you can kind of see what happens in the way that it should be done. So eventually it'll finish and it'll say, congratulations, you win. And it's great. So now what do we do? So what we're going to want to do is go to stats next. And this is the page that you're going to be sending me once a month. It's due around the 1st of every month, not the exact date, but the 1st of every month. You can see it on the syllabus if you'd like to see the exact dates that they're due. But you're just going to hit save as PDF, and then you're going to send me this file. You can either upload it on the Google Drive or send it to me in an email if you don't feel comfortable with sharing it on the Google Drive to everybody. I think it's useful for everybody to share it on the Google Drive because there's no personal information in this. It's just how you're doing flashcards. And I think, at least with the Anki community that I've been involved in, it's really nice to see how other people's stats work so you can kind of understand your learning process, how other people's learning process is going, and things that you could change, things that they're doing, and seeing if possibly you can learn something from your classmates. One of the things that you need to make sure you do before you send it to me is make sure it's on last 12 months. I have to see more than just the last week. It needs to be the entirety of the deck going on there. And then I also need you to, so it'll be this whole thing when you send it to me, but take a look at each of these. This is saying, this is gonna predict how many you're gonna have. Right now there's it's not a very good predictor because you've only done 3 cards for one day, but the more you do, the better predictions you'll have. So in 16 days, you have 0 cards due, but that's because you don't have any cards that are maturing yet. All of your cards are very young. What that means is that once you're, 10 days down the line, you will have cards in 16 days due. Hopefully this will look like a downward curve eventually, and it should look like a continuous downward slope if you're doing it correctly. Reviews, this is just saying how much, this is just giving you stats in the last month. You can change that if you like. Reviews interval. You can also review if you want. It's not necessary. It's just under options if you do want to do it. I'm not going to require that. I do find it useful if I have a test the next day and I need to make sure I know some vocabulary though. I would recommend it if you have something that you really need to learn a lot of information fast for. Hourly breakdown, this is just when you're studying. This will average over time. So when you do it at different times a day, you'll see when you're studying most. This is nice to keep track of so you know what you're doing, so you know when stuff's going on. So here you can see that I clicked the middle button the most and this left button a little bit less. This is a normal way, not a normal distribution in statistical terms, but this is like normal for Anki. You'll see that this button, the 3rd or 4th button, that doesn't appear here right now, the ones that we just learned, they're not going to be there a lot, and they shouldn't be there a lot. And then later you'll get more young cards. Tomorrow, if I were to do this, I would get more young cards. And then eventually after a month, I would get mature cards, which is, it gets pretty exciting when you start to get mature cards. Young cards are exciting too, but once you get over a month period, it starts to feel really good. So I think that you'll start to feel that sense of gratification. It comes in layers, and it's nice that Anki does this. And I look at this, twice a week on my card sets that I have. But this is going to show you how many cards that you've added. And then I also want you guys to select in the last 1 month on this as well. And then for the first month, and then after that for 3 months. But you can do 3 months if you want for the whole time. That's also okay. Let's see here, anything else? Yeah, no, that's about all. But take a look at these. I studied 10 cards today in 142 minutes. A card is a single showing of one of the cards that you have. And then again, just means that you said that you didn't know it. That was only 30% of the time, so that's pretty good. 17% relearn. Relearning is when you've forgotten something and you have to start over. So if you hit that you don't know it when it's on, like after you've already learned it. So if tomorrow I go back and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't know that, I have to start over, then it'll go into the relearn category. It's not a bad thing. It's just a way that Anki or Anki creates a kind of balanced system, but for making sure that you learn the vocabulary. But the most important thing is when you're answering those is to be honest. Like if you really know it, answer yes. If you don't, then answer more honestly so that you can actually learn it. The point of all this is so that we don't forget vocabulary, right? Or don't forget the knowledge that we spent so much time to gain. So just make sure that you're not letting that go to waste. If you're going to sit through my class and sit through all of this stuff, just make sure that you are not wasting the time there. So I have one more thing that I would like for us to go over real quick, and it's just the main website. loading it up as we speak. And you guys should have already looked at it by now, but I just want to run you through a little guide of it so that we know that everybody's on the same page. So here we go. Share this. All right. So this is the okay. It's the editor view. All right. So this is our website. Again, this is the same logo that I created just so we all know where we're at. A little welcome message that I wrote for you guys. Our syllabus is going to be here. If it's not here the first time you access it, that's because I had to make an edit on it. This will be updated over the course of this class, and it is subject to change at different points. I'm going to try to keep it pretty consistent and do as few changes as possible later on. The class is still changing rapidly, so I'm not sure exactly at this point of recording. I don't even know how many students will be in this class. So, but yeah, so this is the first page. The first 2 week schedule is set. That won't change. You can find that on the first page. You can download a copy. At the email me section, this will take you directly to an email page so that it will, so you can send me an email if you need to, or schedule a meeting. This will take you to my calendar scheduler, so you can select a 15-minute time frame to have a scheduled meeting with me, and it'll send me an email once you've done that, and I will attend the meeting. The meeting link that you'll have is on the syllabus. It'll be, you'll see it under the Zoom links for office hours. Next, we can go to the environmental readings. These are going to be the readings that we're going to be doing every single week. We will only do 9 of these. Most likely there's 11, possibly 10 if we have time, but most likely 9. And these will be happening every single week. Now, if you were to click into one like this, then what you'll see is that it'll pop up like so. This will take you to the actual article so that you can read it. I'll open that in a new tab so you can see it. And then this is the Flipgrid link, and that's where you're going to be doing your response to these. And it's only a quick response to them, but these are very important for the class. Make sure that you're doing them before class, that you're finishing the article and then doing your Flipgrid before class. So that we're all on the same page and, you know, respond to each other's Flipgrids. You can also use the QR codes that I placed in here. I don't know how convenient that'll be for anybody, but I just wanted to make it as convenient as possible for everybody. All right, let's see here. All right, and you see that this link took us directly to the page. And this one isn't too long. It's pretty short. I don't even think it's 2 pages. You don't have to read any of this extra. Down here, there's a vocabulary page if you want to look at the vocabulary that they picked out for you. There's a whole bunch, and I think that's helpful if you want to take a look at it. But this is the article that you'll be responding to on Flipgrid, and we'll go back to our website. Alrighty. So next, they will go to resources. So under resources, at this time, there's no video up here, but that's just because this is the first video I've made. So this will be where the videos are, and you'll be able to scroll through them once they're up, or just go to the channel. That's also fine. These are the text readings from the textbook that we'll be doing with every asynchronous class. I would definitely recommend you looking through these and definitely reading them. I'm not going to do an assigned reading pages or anything like that. You can see on the syllabus what we're going through at different times. I mean, it is required to go through the textbook. I'm not going to ask you to do any particular assignments on it besides the Google Forms. So you will have to know the information, but I wouldn't stress about it too much. I'm going to try to do my best to teach it, but come to class with questions from it, so that way we can, the main point of all of these texts is to gain the skills so that we become better readers, right? We're going to do chapter 3, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 4, 5, and 6. If we have time, we'll move on to the rest, but these are the ones that we definitely will get done. It depends on how fast we go in the class. These are the slideshows for the asynchronous sessions. These will be uploaded as we go. The one that I showed you earlier will be on here with all of the links. And then these are the slideshows for the synchronous sessions, which will be on either Tuesday or whichever day that we have decided at that point, but a different day than the asynchronous. Alrighty, and lastly, this is the resources page, and kind of the theme of this page is to maximize your efficiency, you know. That's what I was thinking about when I created this page. So this is, you know, an Anki page that we saw earlier, like maturing, young cards, we see relearned cards, new cards. This is a very healthy Anki habit right here, you can tell, doing it every single day and doing as best as they can. It looks like they had a peak. This might have been a semester test, actually. This is what that looks like. When you have a semester test, but you want to retain the information. That's what that is. There's a huge buildup. Yeah. And then all of the resources that we looked at today, Google Ngram, prefixes, Anki, vocabulary diagnostic that you should have already taken, and then the vocabulary list and digital dictionary extensions. I recommend using these. This one in particular is one that a friend recommended, but you don't have to use that one. This is the reading speed diagnostic. If you haven't done it, do it, because we're going to talk about it on Tuesday. That's also true for the vocabulary diagnostic and some of your results. And just be prepared to talk about that. And then the reading comprehension diagnostic, that's more of a self thing. I mean, I would like you to do it. You don't have to do it, although I think it's a really useful tool. We will be taking that at the end of the semester as well. It's nice to see improvement so that you can see what this class and what the semester has done for you. Lastly, this is where your reading circle guide and article leader guides will be. There'll be a few more guides on here, and if you guys have any questions, I'll be putting guides up to answer those questions here as well. If you guys come up with any of the extra tools that you want added to this, so that we can have all of our stuff in one place, just email it to me. I'll take a look at it and I'll add it to it, and do the best I can there. If there is not any other questions, then I think we are good to go. I hope you guys enjoy the website. I made it so that we could all have one space to be without using La Lima. I find it very hard to use as far as usability. Everything that's not on here, like our sign-up sheets, will all be in the Google Drive. So, and I've already spoken about that. So whenever you get a chance, take a look at those resources, familiarize yourself with the website and the Google Drive, and that will be all. Please email me if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you next class.